Now, Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Gregory Peck as star of The Lonely Road, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills. It's presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Gregory Peck in a remarkable tale of Suspense.
Okay, Lieutenant. You can question him now.
Thanks, Doc. Well, hello, Gare. How goes it?
Oh, not bad. You want a statement, I suppose.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Well, tell me first, is she apt to get the extreme penalty?
Well, that'll depend a lot upon what you have to say.
I see. Well, I'll give it to you straight. I'm counting on you to do your best for her.
Oh, sure. Well, go ahead, shoot.
Okay. The first time I saw Jenny, she was coming along the road carrying a suitcase. I knew she was headed for our place because it's the only house for miles around there. I was trimming the hedge, and I'd got as far as the rear gate when she reached it. I waited for her to speak.
Is this the Gare place?
That's right. What can I do for you?
You had an ad in the paper for a girl to do general housework.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, come along into the house. My wife will want to have a talk with you.
This is a beautiful place you've got here, Mr. Gare. But it's certainly hard to get to.
You've walked from the highway?
Yeah. Must have been almost 5 miles. The sun is something fierce. I almost gave up. Don't any buses run along here?
No, we're pretty isolated. If when there's help in the house, I always manage to give them a lift into town.
That makes it nice, Mr. Gare.
What's your name?
Jenny.
Jenny what?
Jenny'll do.
All right, Jenny, in here, please. And Mrs. Gare's a trifle hard of hearing, so you'll have to speak up a bit. Oh, Helen, this is Jenny. She's come in answer to our advertisement.
Oh, yes. I'm very glad to see you, Jenny. Won't you sit down?
She was extraordinarily looking. Not beautiful or pretty. Striking, I guess, would be the word. She had heavy black braids wound about her head. Her eyes were a clear green and looked straight through you. And she was lean and powerful, like a young animal, a leopard or a panther or something. Well, my wife engaged Jenny. That night she cooked an excellent dinner and served it well. She had on a purple skirt and a cerise, I guess you'd call it, blouse, and I could see Helen eye it with disfavor. Every time the girl came close to me, I could feel the strength of her. And those green eyes watched us as if she was sizing us up. We took our coffee and cigarettes out on the veranda after dinner. You can look right over the orange grove to the hills. It's nice.
Steve, what do you think about Jenny?
Oh, well, it's a little early to judge. Seems capable enough. That was a darn good dinner, if you ask me. Maybe we're in luck, darling.
Maybe. What is she, do you think? Mexican?
No, I'd say Slavic with that build and shape of face. A little more coffee, Helen. Half a cup.
You're probably right. There's a sort of, gypsy arrogance, boldness about her that makes me uneasy, as if I'd have something to cope with.
We went up to bed early. I was pretty exhausted every night with all the physical work I had to do. I turned out the light, and for some reason stepped over to the window. Jenny's room was downstairs on the same side of the house as ours in the rear. Her light was still on. She was getting ready for bed, and her shadow, huge and black, lay across the lawn. Her arms were raised to take down those heavy braids. There was something actually classic about the thing. The picture of it stayed in my mind long after I'd got into bed. Well, 2 or 3 days went by, and Jenny, well, the thing was, you were conscious of her all the time. Wherever she was, about the house, whatever she was doing, you thought about her. I was working in the garage one afternoon when she came out there with the butcher knife.
Mrs. Gare says you've a whetstone out here. Could I get you to sharpen my knife for me, Mr. Gare?
Of course. Just a moment.
What's that you're doing?
Oh, I'm trying to mend this old bear trap.
Oh, are you a trapper, Mr. Gare?
Oh, no. Hardly. There's a coyote around that's been stealing the chickens. I'm hoping to catch him. There. Now then, let's have the knife.
What do you do, Mr. Gare?
Well, Jenny, Mrs. Gare was a concert pianist at the time of our marriage. I was a manager. Now I take care of her properties. Holdings, investments, you know.
You mean you sign things for her, like checks and papers and things?
Power of attorney, yes, that's part of it.
Pretty soft for you. Huh, Mr. Gare?
Oh, on the contrary, it's quite a job. Keeps me busy.
I still say you've got a pretty setup. And she didn't get such a bad deal herself. She's crazy in love with you. Anybody can see that. Why not? You're good looking, Mr. Gare. And young. You must be at least 12 years younger than she is.
Now, here's your knife, Jenny. Careful now. It's like a razor.
Thanks a lot. That's the way I want it. I can't stand a dull knife. So, I'll probably bother you often.
A few more days went by. I finished my trap and set it out near the chicken run, hoping I'd catch my thief. And one night after dinner, we were in the living room. What's the matter, Helen?
Steve, it's that girl. She was standing there in the dining room door listening.
Jenny? Well, she probably likes music. What's the harm?
Oh, it isn't that. She's always listening and watching. It's beginning to get on my nerves.
How about her work?
Oh, well, she works hard enough. She's willing and clean as a pin, but... Well, I have a feeling she doesn't respect me, that I just don't figure in her scheme of things. She's just simply taken the place over. I don't even run my own house anymore.
Well, fire her, or why don't you?
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Say the word and I'll do it for you.
No, I don't want you to. Steve, frankly, I'd be afraid to tell her to go. She might get ugly and set fire to the house or something.
Oh, I never heard such nonsense in my life. What ails you, Helen? Aren't you well?
I'm just terribly nervous, Steve. Maybe that's why she takes advantage.
Well, that settled that. I felt like a heel, though, because I was relieved that Helen didn't want to fire Jenny. I was obliged to admit to myself that the girl was getting under my skin. Any little service she had to perform for me, she made very special, standing as close as she dared. I could feel the magnetism of that strong, perfect body. Her hair smelled like new apples, and those clear green eyes would linger caressingly in mine. Then, after about 2 weeks, one night, it must have been 1 or 2 o'clock.
Steve, wake up.
What's the matter?
That girl. I think she's out there in the hallway. I think she's been in this room.
Oh, Helen.
I'm frightened, Steve. Please make a light.
Oh, all right. No one around, Helen. You must have been dreaming, dear.
Oh, perhaps I was. I dream about her often, Steve. Horrid, confused kind of dreams. I'm trying to scream for help and can't. It's just...
Oh, good Lord, Helen. I never thought anybody could get you down. You've got to control yourself somehow. This is just plain silly.
Yes.
I turned out the light and got back into bed. In a little while, I could hear Helen's even breathing and knew she was asleep. I lay there, thinking. About Jenny, of course. I never thought of much else. In a moment, I heard the piano. So faint, I thought I was imagining it. And it came again. Weird. ghostly. I got up again, put on my robe, and slipped downstairs. The living room was dark except for the moonlight pouring through the window. And Jenny's figure, black against the light, was moving towards me. Almost before I knew it, she'd pressed close against me, crushing her mouth to mine. It was like being stung. Sharp, sweet, terrible. Jenny, what is this?
Don't kid me. You knew this was coming, that it had to come, that nothing could keep us apart. Now everything's going to be all right.
But Jenny, we can't. Helen is no fool.
We can't let her stand in our way.
What do you mean?
It won't be hard. Just a matter of figuring the best way.
I don't know what you mean, Jenny. And we can't stay here talking like this any longer.
It'll be just you and me, Steve. And all that money. Think what we can do with it. Just think.
Are you crazy?
Yeah. Crazy for you. Just like you are for me. Listen, Steve. Inside of 5 or 6 years, you're going to be stuck with a deaf old woman. What you going to do? Sit here and grow old with her? Not you. Sooner or later, you'll clear out. So why not now? With me.
Why, it's not so simple as you make it sound, my dear.
All you have to do is to spread around the town that Helen's going to visit her folks. Mississippi or someplace. And leave her to me. Afterwards, you can say your wife's decided to stay down south. That you're going to sell out and join her. Then we can turn everything into cash and we're on our way. Easy?
The next few days I worked outside till my hands bled and my whole body shrieked with pain. To keep from thinking, I began having nightmares. I'd wake up in a cold sweat and lie there longing for daylight, swearing that as soon as morning came, I'd throw that girl out of the house. But she'd brush against me or touch my hand, and I'd be wild for her again. I guess I knew then that sooner or later I'd agree to nearly anything she asked.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Gregory Peck in The Lonely Road by Marion Orth. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Today is the first day of spring, a welcome time everywhere, but especially at Roma. For in Roma's carefully kept vineyards, located in California's choicest wine-growing districts, the precious vines are already stirring with renewed life. The eternal miracle of soil and sun is now creating the luscious goodness of tender grapes that Roma's master vintners patiently, unhurriedly, guide to tempting, mellow wine perfection for you. If you've never enjoyed fine Roma California wines, you'll be delighted to discover Roma can offer you so much taste luxury for so little. Yes, Roma is America's first choice in wine for every occasion, every day. Yet, you can enjoy fine Roma wine for just pennies a glass, about the cost of a soft drink. And all Roma wines are bottled at the winery to bring you sealed-in, unvarying goodness always. So, for praise-winning hospitality, or for happy family evenings at home, serve Roma Sherry, Port, Muscatel, or Tokay. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wines. Discover why more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Gregory Peck, who, as Stephen Gare in The Lonely Road, continues a narrative well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Helen began to get on my nerves. It seemed that every day she looked older, washed out, became deafer. I began to despise her. to wander out of my way, out of Jenny's in my way. One morning at breakfast, Jenny came in and stood there looking at me fixedly.
Well, Jenny, what is it?
If you're going to town today, Mr. Gare, I've written down some things for the house.
Very well, Jenny. If your list's ready, give it to me. I'll be leaving in a few minutes. I knew what she meant. She was getting impatient. My reply, which she waited for with those green eyes fixed on mine, was virtually a consent to her plan. As for me, I wasn't sure what I meant to do, but I thought it would do no harm, at least, to set the ball rolling. In town, I dropped into the garage and asked the mechanic to look the car over. I said Mrs. Gare was planning a trip to visit her family in Mississippi, that I'd have to drive her into Tucson to take the train, and that my tires weren't so good. After that, I stopped at the realty office.
Well, really, Mr. Gare, you're thinking of selling that beautiful place of yours?
Oh, it's just a possibility. I don't want any prospective buyers about the place as yet, but my wife is planning a trip south, and I may follow her and remain there permanently. Help such a problem. A place of ours takes a lot of handling. A fellow gets fed up after a while.
Well, there'd be no difficulty disposing of the property, Mr. Gare. Well, just let me know when you're ready. Meanwhile, I won't bother you with people coming.
I drove home in a sort of trance. I wasn't shocked at what I'd done, and the thing was still wide open if I wanted to back out. When I got home, I didn't want to go into the house. So far, I'd had no luck with the coyotes, so I busied myself setting the trap in another spot. While I was doing this, Jenny came out with that butcher knife again, and we went into the garage. Helen was at the piano.
Did you do what I told you to, Steve?
Yes.
Good. I can't stand this much longer.
All right, Jenny. But I can't bear to be here when...
Kiss me, Steve. Don't worry. It'll be when you're out of the house.
She didn't say any more, just looked at me with a twisted little smile. I gave her the sharpened knife, and she kissed me and went into the house. At dinner that night, Helen said...
I had words with Jenny today, Steve. I can't have her around any longer. You can fire her tonight if you will.
What? Oh, no, my dear. I offered to do it once, and you wouldn't let me. Now you'll just have to do it yourself.
Steve, I'm afraid of her terribly.
Why, has she been ugly, threatening?
Oh, don't shout so, Steve. I'm not as deaf as all that. And she'll hear you. No, she hasn't threatened me, nothing like that. There's just something about her that fills me with horror.
Oh, you're imagining things, Helen. What possible reason could she have for harming you?
I don't know, but this house has become a dreadful place. I'm cold all the time, and I'm shaky, and you seem different. You look at me sometimes as if you hate me.
Now, see here,
Don't
Helen,
try to reason with me. If she doesn't get out of this house quick, I'll lose my mind. She's like a witch or something malignant or evil.
Jenny came in just then to change the plates for dessert. As she bent over to take the platter, she held that knife in her hand in such a way that my blood ran cold for a minute. After she'd gone out...
You haven't noticed it, but lately I haven't taken a mouthful of food until I've seen you start to eat for fear she'll poison me.
That's ridiculous. Why shouldn't she poison me as well?
Because she's crazy about you.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And you're crazy about her. Don't deny it, Steve. I may be deaf, but I'm not blind, you know.
Look, Helen, I'm going into town for a drive. If you want to fire Jenny while I'm gone, that's all right with me. I tried not to dwell on the immediate events, but to think about the time when I'd be free, to go away with Jenny. The drive into town seemed endless, but at last I pulled up in front of the hotel.
Hey, evening, Mr. Gare. Come for the papers?
Yes, and a cigar maybe, Fred. I looked around the little lobby. There wasn't a soul in there that I knew. I watched the people. One minute feeling sorry for them because their lives were so drab. The next envying them because they were so secure, simple. I was sitting there staring unseeingly at the local paper when I suddenly came out of this trance or spell that I'd been under. The shock of realization was frightful. I didn't want anything to happen to Helen. I prayed to heaven I'd get home in time. I kept recalling similar instances of such crimes I'd read in newspapers. I'd always wondered how people could become involved in such things. Well, I knew all about it now. Weak fool to let a coarse creature like that lead me into such a thing. If only I could be in time. I'd throw that girl out and devote the rest of my life to making Helen happy. Helen, generous, loving, intelligent, and talented. Why hadn't I thought of all this before? Then I saw the car. It was parked at the side of the highway right at my turnoff. I knew it was a police car. I cursed to myself and prayed. Don't let them take long. I've got to be in time for Helen. Please. An officer stepped out into the road and waved his flash. Please, I said to myself. Please.
Hello.
What's up, officer?
Oh, looking for a stolen car, but not a baby like that one.
A local car, was it?
Yeah. Hey, you better let me have a look at your operator's card, my friend. You must have been doing about 80 along that stretch.
Oh, sure. Here you are, officer. Sorry I was overdoing it. I was just in town, and I guess I stayed longer than I intended. My wife's alone in the house and not very well, and I was in a hurry to get home.
You live down this road?
That's right.
Say, maybe that car could have got down in there. I think I'll...
No. I would have seen it.
Okay, Mr. Gare. Just take it easy, will you?
Certainly will, officer, and thanks. Good night. I didn't know what to do. I stood there in the doorway, looking up. There was a light upstairs in the window of our bedroom. It threw a radiance on the screen door and burned with a steady glow, as if it had been burning like that for ages. As if it had witnessed a scene of horror and brooded over it, keeping the secret to itself. When I started finally for the house, my legs were so stiff I could scarcely walk. I stayed off the gravel, walking on the grass, and went in the back door. There wasn't a sound. I tiptoed through the kitchen, through the dining room, across the hall. Then I could see the light from that lamp spilling down the stairway at the far end of the dark living room. My heart thumped so loud I could hear it. I wanted to call out, but I didn't dare. Whom would I call? Perhaps everything was all right. Perhaps Helen was up there in bed. How I prayed she was. I hesitated on the threshold, thought of glancing into Jenny's room, but that would have looked queer if nothing had happened. I stepped over the threshold. Ah! It was that trap, that bear trap. Somebody had placed it there, ready for me. Who? The pain was excruciating. I wrenched and pulled at the thing. Helen! Jenny, somebody! Come and give me a hand. Oh! Who is it? Oh, help me. Help me, hurry. I'm caught in this trap. Get the hammer, pliers, anything. She reached the bottom of the stairs and snapped on the lights. I've never seen such a sight in my life. There was blood all over the place. On the wallpaper, the white paint. Then I saw Jenny, lying on the floor in a crumpled heap, her long braids soaking in Helen's dress. Her hands and face were spattered with it. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes like pinpoints of fire. And against her side I could see the gleam of that long, sharp knife. was coming slowly towards me. Oh, we were beautifully caught, Jenny and I. She with her knife, I with my trap. Helen, don't look like that. What's happened?
You planned this together, you two. But it didn't turn out just as you thought it might.
Helen,
You
please don't
planned
look at
it
me like that.
together. Well, there she is. Look at her. If I hadn't been ready for her, I'd be lying in her place, and you'd be glad, wouldn't you, Steve?
No. Helen, are you insane? Drop that knife, for heaven's sake, and listen to me. She came closer. I made a lunge for her. With the grip of that steel about my leg, threw me off balance, and I fell forward. She sprang on me. I fought her off, but that knife came at me. Face, throat, everywhere like flashes of lightning. Helen, don't do this to me. I swear I came back. Ah! Helen! Don't! No! Well, Lieutenant, that police car arrived in time to save my life. But I wish they'd let her finish the job. Then and there.
Okay, Gareth. Okay, thanks. I'll send the doc right in. And, Gare, I wouldn't worry too much about Helen. I think she'll be all right.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Gregory Peck, the star of The Lonely Road, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Here's how millions of American homemakers are relieving the monotony of meatless Lenten meals. They are adding zest and freshness to otherwise drab menus by serving a fine Roma table wine. Yes, Roma wine makes the difference between just eating and friendly, enjoyable dining. Try serving Roma California Sauterne with your favorite fish tomorrow. Discover how delicate, pale gold Roma Sauterne lends enchanting new charm and companionship to your table. How Roma's delightful fragrance and smooth, palatable goodness make dining more pleasureful. With baked beans or spaghetti, serve full-bodied, red Roma California Burgundy. They're perfect flavor mates. Tomorrow, Friday, make dinner a treat with Roma wine. Roma wines cost but pennies a glass. So little, everyone can enjoy them often. Insist on Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma wine. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Gregory Peck. Like everyone else here in the film colony, I've always admired Suspense, and it's been very exciting to appear here tonight. I want to thank Maria Palmer, who appeared as Jenny, and Kathy Lewis, who enacted the role of Helen in tonight's play. Next Thursday on Suspense, a very famous character of crime fiction will make his debut on the air. That'll be Baynard Kendrick's remarkable blind detective, Captain Duncan McLean. And Brian Donlevy will play Captain McLean in a radio play built around one of the most ingenious and cunning murders I've ever heard about. I'll surely be listening, and I know you will want to listen next Thursday to Suspense.
Gregory Peck will soon be seen as star of The Yearling, produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Mr. Brian Donlevy as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. Suspense is broadcast from coast to coast and to our men and women of the armed forces overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Now, Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present Suspense.
Tonight, Roma Wines bring you Mr. Brian Dunleavy, a star of Out of Control, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Brian Dunleavy in a remarkable tale of suspense.
I arrived in Gatlinburg around 10 in the morning. I checked in at a hotel called the Mountain Inn and went downstairs to breakfast. My dog Snooky went with me, as she always does. I gave my order to the waiter. As I sat there, I looked the place over. It was a good-sized room, by the echo in it. There was a log fire crackling in the fireplace on the far side of the room and a large view window on my right. Glass has a special kind of echo. There was only one person in the room when I entered. It was a woman, apparently a wealthy and rather vain woman, judging from her perfume. She was sitting at the table diagonally across from me. I looked in her direction, so to speak. I heard a man's footsteps approaching across the room and smelled fresh polish on riding boots as he went past me. He paused before her table.
Well, if it isn't Miss Dennis Fillmore. Hello, Marcia.
Walter Crane.
Surprised to see me?
What do you want?
I hear your husband is thinking of running for governor.
So what?
Well, Marcia, I've got a newspaper clipping here. I thought it might interest him. It's about your pal, the late Eddie Hassan.
What about Eddie?
I'll read you the headline. Eddie Hassan killed in auto crash. Colorful Reno figure plunges from Mountain Road. Car out of control, say police.
Dennis never knew Eddie Hassan.
No. No, he didn't, did he? You know, Marcia, how you managed to keep those two apart has always been a mystery to me. And of course,
I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I never mean to. But as some people can read what's on the marquee of a movie theater 10 blocks away, the most intimate conduct and conversation comes to me from across the room as if spoken into a microphone. This is a dubious pleasure to me at most times, but as Marcia Fillmore and Walter Crane continued, my interest became more than casual. He was reading again from the newspaper clipping.
Club is beneficiary of an insurance policy. Miss Hanley was the late Mr. Hassan's companion and was to have been married to him upon his divorce decree becoming final.
Well?
I was wondering if your brand new, politically minded husband would be interested in the fact that you were known locally as a gangster's companion.
You always were a louse, Walter, but I never thought you'd stoop to blackmail.
Look, I lost a good job because of you, Marcia. When an insurance investigator gets fired because his employers think he's too susceptible to beautiful dames, he never gets back in the racket. I've got to look elsewhere for a source of income. And it so happens that there are some things about Eddie Hassan's accident that my former employers might be interested in.
Eddie's car got out of control, and that's all there is to it.
Look, you seem to forget, baby, that I investigated that case for Pacific All Risk before they paid off. And I didn't tell all the things I know or all the things I thought because, well, you were making life very interesting for me in those days. Well, Marcia?
You're wasting your time, Walter.
Oh, am I?
Get out and take your clipping with you.
Well, you can't blame a man for trying. Oh, waiter.
Yes, sir.
Bring me a glass of water, will you? Ice water.
Something wrong, ma'am?
No, nothing wrong.
Get the water.
Yes, sir. Right away.
Why did you do that?
What?
Nothing. Skip it.
Oh, the ice water? Well, I'm thirsty, that's all.
You're sure that's all?
What else would I want with ice water?
Oh, forget it. Look, Walter, I'll sell Dennis on the idea of investing some money in a company of yours.
Well, that's more like it. When's he coming up here?
Tomorrow, but you mustn't see him till I've had a chance to talk to him. Get out of town right away tonight.
Where do I go?
I have a fishing lodge up in the mountains. I'll give you the key to the place. Go up there and stay until I've sold Dennis on the idea. When the time's ripe, I'll come and get you.
I'll cut you in on the deal, Marcia, if you sell them good enough.
Women do things sometimes, Walter, that they don't want to be paid for.
Lonesome women, maybe?
Maybe.
Oh, Marcia, you're still the most beautiful woman that ever led a man up a garden path.
Let's drink to that, Walter.
In ice water?
In ice water.
The man who had come to blackmail Marcia Fillmore remained to whisper sweet nothings in her ear. It didn't make sense at first, but then I remembered. I had been told that she was a very beautiful woman. Beautiful to look at, that is. There are times when I am profoundly grateful that I have no eyes to deceive me. It must have been shortly after midnight that I heard it. I awoke with a start and sat up in bed, although I have been blind for many years. I still reach out and automatically turn on the light switch when I am awakened in the night. When the light went on, the sound stopped. I turned it off and waited. Quiet, Snooky. Quiet. Quiet. It started again. It seemed to be below my window somewhere, down by the hotel garages. Through the years, I have finally trained myself to identify almost any action by sound. But this one stumped me at first. It continued for perhaps 10 seconds longer, and then it stopped for good, and a car door slammed shut. I made a careful mental note of the car's motor as it started up. It was a Packard, and one of the spark plugs was missing fire. But it got away to a fast start and was soon out of even my earshot. Of one thing I was certain. It turned off the main road onto gravel, and there was only one such turnoff within earshot of the hotel, the private road to the Fillmore's fishing lodge. Evidently, Mr. Walter Crane was going to have a visitor up there sooner than he had expected. As I dropped off to sleep, the memory of that sound came back to me. There was something strange and altogether sinister about it. It was still ringing in my head when I dropped off to sleep.
Quiet, Snooky. Quiet. Just a moment.
Captain McLean.
I'm Duncan McLean.
May I come in for a moment?
Of course.
I do hope you'll forgive me for bursting in here like this, but I saw you in the dining room yesterday morning, and when I heard who you were, I hope you won't be angry with me.
Not at all. Past my getting up time anyway. Must have been the mountain air that made me oversleep. Won't you sit down?
Thank you.
Cigarette?
Yes, thanks.
Well, here, I've got it.
You know, you're really amazing. One would never suspect that you're...
Blind? Well, Mrs. Fillmore, we blind people can compensate to a certain extent by developing other senses more acutely.
You know my name.
I took the liberty of asking the head waiter last night who the lady was with the intoxicating perfume.
Just as I asked who the man was with the police dog.
Oh, no. Snooky here is not a police dog. She's just an amiable old German shepherd. I have a police dog, though. Dreist.
Oh?
I only take him along when I'm on especially dangerous assignments.
I gather you're not on one now.
Shall we get to the point, Mrs. Fillmore?
Well, there's a man staying here in this hotel, or rather he was. His name is Walter Crane. He's a blackmailer.
Yeah?
Well, there's no need going into it, but he's got hold of something about my past. If it were published, it would ruin my husband's career.
There's only one thing to do with a blackmailer, Mrs. Fillmore. Turn him over to the police.
No, you don't understand. The police here is Sheriff Blackmer. He and my husband are political enemies. I'm afraid it would be too good an opportunity for him to pass up.
Yes, I see your point.
My first instinct was to get Walter Crane away from here. I told him to go up to our fishing lodge. I even gave him the key. I even pretended to renew an old interest which he once fancied I had in him personally.
Always a mistake.
Yes, but you don't know the worst of it. My husband came in from Knoxville early this morning. Without even waking me, went straight on up to the fishing lodge. Left a note asking me to join him there. My husband is a violent and unreasonable man when he's angry, Captain McLean. If he finds Walter Crane staying there in the lodge, he's likely to think that...
Just what are you afraid of, Mrs. Fillmore?
I'm afraid that my husband... Heaven forgive me for such a thought. I'm afraid my husband will murder him. There. Now I've said it.
Yes. Now you've said it. Excuse me. Hello? Yes? Oh, Mrs. Fillmore. Yes, she's right here. It's for you, Mrs. Fillmore.
Oh, no. Please, don't go. I'm afraid it... Hello? Oh, yes, Sheriff Blackman. Oh, how dreadful. Why, no, we didn't know him. I did speak to him for a moment yesterday evening, but Why, of course, I'd be glad to help you in any way I can. I'll be in my cottage.
What is it?
Walter Crane. They found him. His car plunged over the embankment. He was killed instantly.
When?
Some people in the cottage down below saw it happen.
When?
Just 5 minutes ago.
On the way over to her cottage, I stopped at the hotel desk and sent a wire to the Seeing Eye Kennel in New Jersey. Send Dreist Air Express immediately. Dreist is my police dog. The dog I use only on very dangerous missions.
Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Brian Donlevy in Out of Control from the novel by Baynard Kendrick. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Tonight, famous hostess Elsa Maxwell tells us how she's always ready for unexpected guests. Here's the secret, says Miss Maxwell. Entertaining friends who just drop in is easy with Roma California Sherry on hand. Everyone enjoys Roma Sherry. And Roma Sherry is so easy to serve, I give my friends a warm welcome on second's notice. Yes, glorious golden amber Roma Sherry is the perfect first call for dinner, too. Ideal for moderate Lenten entertaining, delightful anytime. And because Roma wine is America's first choice, Roma brings you fine wines for only pennies a glass. Yet with Roma wines, you enjoy the true wine taste luxury of choice tender grapes, grown in California's finest vineyards, skillfully, unhurriedly, guided to mellow richness by Roma's master vintners, carefully bottled at the winery in California to seal in unvarying goodness always. Enjoy Roma wine tomorrow. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine. Insist on Roma. R-O-M-A.
And now Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Brian Donlevy, who, as Captain Duncan McLean in Out of Control, continues a narrative well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Sheriff Blackmer was a big, professionally cheerful man, but I could tell from his voice that he was plenty worried.
Glad to have you in on this, Captain McLean. We don't have many cases of this kind in these bars.
I'll be glad to do what I can, Sheriff Blackmer.
Oh, so this is one of them there seeing eye critters. You don't look no different from any other pooch to me. Nice pooch. Well, I thought those seeing eye dogs were trained to be gentle.
I trained this one myself for special jobs.
Oh, what kind of job? Don't bother to explain. I think I know the answer to that one. Yes. Well, now, let's get down to business. Mrs. Fillmore.
I suppose you want some information about that road up to the fishing lodge. It's quite steep and hard to negotiate if you don't know it.
I know the road very well, Mrs. Fillmore.
But then what are you...
You said you didn't know this man, Walter Crane.
Sheriff, I was very foolish when I spoke to you on the phone. As a matter of fact, he's a very old friend of mine, or was. I think you'll understand when I tell you my husband was very jealous.
Jealous enough to have killed him?
Killed him? I thought he died in an auto crash.
He was murdered and thrown into the car just before it crashed. He died with an ice pick through his heart.
Whatever she knew, that she wasn't telling. That part of it came to her as a complete surprise. I know that now. I knew it at the time. Whatever Marcia Fillmore had known about Walter Crane's death, she was innocent of stabbing him through the heart with that ice pick. As for the rest of it, her alibi was perfect. I was her alibi this time. She was in my room when it happened, 20 miles from the scene of the crime, but someone had driven up to that lodge before Dennis Fillmore. Someone who had made elaborate preparations for that little drive. As I walked over to the hotel garage, the memory of that sound came back to me. The sound that I was convinced held the key to the mystery of Walter Crane's death, and Eddie Hassan's as well. I found a mechanic working on a car.
Morning, sir. Hey, looking for your car?
No, I don't drive.
Oh.
Mrs. Fillmore asked me to stop by. Is her car ready yet?
Yeah, sure. It was only one of the spark plugs.
Oh. This car?
Yeah.
Station wagon. Packard, isn't it?
Hey, you've got a good sense of touch, mister.
Thank you. Say, that's nice upholstery. Real leather, isn't it?
Yep.
That's peculiar.
What is?
The floor is wet and cold.
Oh, maybe they went fishing this morning. They carry a chunk of ice sometimes when they go trout fishing.
Ice? Of course. That's what it was. Ice.
You must believe me. I know that my husband didn't do this terrible thing.
Then why did you come to me this morning and tell me that you were afraid your husband would murder Crane?
Don't you understand why? I needed help. I knew you only work on murder cases, and so I tried to get you interested by making that story up.
I think I can save your husband, Marcia, but only if you tell me the absolute truth.
Oh, I will. I swear I will.
Did you go up there to that cabin last night to see Walter Crane?
No.
Lie number one. You drove up there around 12:30.
How did you know?
I heard a car drive out about that time. It was a Packard with one dead spark plug. This morning, your Packard was in the garage getting a spark plug replaced.
You don't know I went up there?
I heard you turn off on a gravel road about halfway up the mountain. Your road is the only one up that way.
All right. All right, I did go up there. But I wasn't there when it happened.
Marcia, have you ever seen this bottle before?
Certainly. It had Barolin in it. Sleeping medicine. It's a prescription of my husband's.
Have you any idea how it got in Crane's car?
Well, I gave it to him. He said he couldn't sleep.
How did you give it to him?
In the bottle, of course. Are you intimating that I drugged him?
I'm only trying to find out what Crane did the last few hours of his life. If he took an overdose of sleeping medicine, it might account for the accident. He might have got up this morning, still woozy from the effects of the drug, got in his car, released the emergency brake, blacked out for a split second, as sometimes happens in a reaction to an overdose of sleeping medicine, lost control of the car, and crashed over the embankment. It might have been as easy as that.
But that wouldn't account for the ice pick through his heart.
No. Not unless... You took a chunk of ice up there last night, didn't you?
I don't know how you knew. Yes. Yes, he needed some, especially if he was going to do some trout fishing, and Walter was very fond of ice water.
Yes, I know. He ordered some last night at dinner.
Is there anything you don't see with those sightless eyes of yours?
I still don't see the murderer of Walter Crane.
I thought for a moment there you suspected me.
I'm perfectly capable of it. You had the motive. You had the ice pick. But you weren't there when it happened.
No. They can't prove that Dennis was, can they?
Well, he's a pretty likely candidate, isn't he, Marcia?
Oh, I'm so worried about him. They have a posse out for him. Where will he go, I wonder?
I wonder. I knew where he'd go, and so did she. And they both knew that matters would have to come to a head that night. I didn't tell Sheriff Blackmer everything, but he agreed to drive me up there. About 20 minutes after the sheriff left, a man came into the lodge. From the storeroom where I was hidden, I could hear perfectly. He didn't turn on any lights, but went out to the kitchen and started some coffee. It could only have been Dennis Fillmore, who paced up and down in that darkened room. Then I heard the door open and a woman's footsteps coming in.
Dennis.
Marcia.
Oh, Dennis.
You shouldn't have come here. What are you trying to do, leave them to me?
I didn't tell the sheriff about you, Dennis. I swear I didn't.
Tell him what?
Dennis, I know you killed Crane.
Oh, you know I'm a murderer. Then what are you doing here?
Dennis, I love you so much. I hated that man. I'm glad you killed him.
What was Crane to you?
I was going to tell you, darling, I used to know him. He's a blackmailer. It was perfectly innocent before I met you, but with your career, and I just didn't want you to get mixed up in it. That's why I told you to hide.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marcia. Don't cry, please.
I love you, Dennis.
I made some coffee. Would you like some of it?
Yes. You sit still, darling. I'll get it. Dennis, what are we going to do? Have you thought about it?
I'm thinking as hard as I can, Marcia.
You can't confess to this terrible thing, Dennis. I won't let you.
I don't think the insurance company would pay if I were electrocuted, would they?
Oh, Dennis, don't say such things. Here, drink your coffee.
It tastes rotten, but it's hot.
Oh.
What's the matter with you?
I don't know. I feel faint. I can't seem to get my breath. It's so stuffy in here.
Well, it must be the wood smoke. I had a terrible time starting the fire. Come along outside. The air will buck you up.
All right, darling. Oh, yes. That is better.
Would you like to drive somewhere?
No, darling. Let's just sit in the car for a while. The air is so...
They sat there in the car perhaps 10 minutes before the car door slammed shut. And then I heard it. The sound that had been ringing in my ears since that first night. But now I was hearing the real thing for a second time. As calmly as the neighborhood iceman chipping out a 50-pound chunk for a housewife, the murderer was making preparations for a third experiment in a method of almost perfect crime. Hello, Marcia.
You. How did you get here?
I'm afraid I was eavesdropping.
Then you heard what Dennis said.
Yes, I did, Marcia.
Oh, Captain McLean, could you forget that Dennis said that? Crane was a blackmailer. What does it matter who killed?
Don't come any closer, Marcia. This dog isn't Snooky. This is Dreist, the dog I told you about, remember?
The one you take on dangerous missions? So frightening me, Captain.
You've terrified me for 2 whole days, Marcia. You're the most perfect killer I've ever met.
But you said yourself I couldn't have stabbed Walter Crane.
Eddie Hassan wasn't stabbed.
You're bluffing. You can't prove a thing.
No. That's the beauty of your method. The ice melts away before the accident happens.
Ice?
That's your method, Marcia. First, the victim is drugged with an overdose of sleeping medicine. Then lured into the car and kept there till he falls asleep. The rest is simple. Put ice wedges under the front wheels and release the emergency brake. When the wedges melt away, the car rolls over the embankment with the sleeping man in it. You're miles away from the scene, and the evidence has vanished. Literally melted away. Only this time it's not going to work.
What are you going to do?
Phone Sheriff Blackmer. I want him to get here before the ice melts.
Captain McKay.
Stay where you are, Marcia. It would be a shame to have Bryce mutilate your beauty. Your beauty is your most powerful weapon, you know. I only hope it won't free you and turn you loose to start killing again.
You. What do you know about a woman's beauty, you blind...
Marcia, stay back. I warn you. This dog is a killer.
I'll kill you and that mongrel with you. I've hated you from the moment I first saw you. What kind of a man is it that looks at a woman with those cold, dead eyes? You'd be better off dead. I'm doing you a favor,
Well, she's dead, all right.
I'm sorry. The dog, I guess I'll have to have him put away.
That won't be necessary, Captain. She did that for you. Jabbed the ice pick square between his eyes.
Oh, poor fella.
Yeah. What I can't figure out, how did she manage to stab Crane and still keep her alibi?
She didn't stab Crane.
Then who did?
Nobody.
Well, then how...
It was a freak accident, Sheriff. The ice pick was on the seat of the car when it crashed. I knew that when you told me the angle at which it entered the body that it was. She really thought her husband had done it. After she left Crane asleep in the car. So much so that she even accused him of doing it. By the way, is he all right?
Oh, sure, just a little dopey from the sleeping pills. I guess he's really pretty broken up about her. Really loved her, the sap. Can't blame him, though. She really was a beautiful woman. Why, when she looked at you with those big blue eyes of hers, you could believe anything she wanted you to believe.
So they told me. Yes, Sheriff, sometimes I'm very glad I have no eyes to deceive me.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wine, ROMA, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Brian Donlevy, the star of Out of Control, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wine. Nowadays, you can't always find the choice meats, the plump chickens, the succulent fish you'd like. But you can give available foods tempting new flavor richness by serving them with a fine Roma California table wine. Yes, pale gold, Roma Sauterne, or red Roma Burgundy makes even the simplest dishes good eating, adds so much to dining pleasure. This very weekend, discover how a glassful of delightful Roma Sauterne heightens your enjoyment of fish or fowl. Enjoy the satisfying taste harmony of Roma Burgundy with old-fashioned pot roast or spaghetti. See how each sip points up the flavor of every morsel. And remember, Roma wine is a treat you can enjoy often, for Roma costs just pennies a glass. So make your dinner more exciting tomorrow and every day with a fine Roma wine. Insist on Roma. ROMA. Roma wine, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Brian Donlevy. I would like to particularly thank Kathy Lewis for her wonderful performance tonight as Marcia Fillmore. Mr. Spear has been telling me about next Thursday's suspense play. Miss Agnes Moorehead will be the star in a show concerning a faded leading lady, her cheerful second husband, and a sweepstakes ticket which turns out to have been buried on the person of her not-so-cheerful first husband. I know that I won't miss this one, and I'm sure you won't. Thank you.
Brian Dunleavy will soon be seen in the Paramount Technicolor production, The Virginian. Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Miss Agnes Moorehead as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Now, Roma Wines, ROMA, made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Roma Wines present
Suspense. Tonight, Roma Wines bring you the MGM star Miss Agnes Moorehead in Mortem, a suspense play produced, edited, and directed for Roma Wines by William Spear.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those excellent California wines that can add so much pleasantness to the way you live, to your happiness in entertaining guests, to your enjoyment of everyday meals. Yes, right now a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Agnes Moorehead in a remarkable tale of suspense.
Up with the buttercups, come on, get up, here comes the sun. Good morning, darling.
Stephen, you goose.
Your coffee, madame?
My stars and crown, I wish you wouldn't insist on my having coffee in bed, Stephen. It makes me feel like a loose character, just like the old days when I was in the theater.
Coffee in bed, then a long soak in the tub under the sun lamp. That's old Doc Archie's prescription for those aches and pains of yours.
Oh, but I haven't had any aches and pains for weeks now.
There, that proves that you can't afford to stop the treatment now. Besides, you look beautiful with a suntan.
Well, if that's the case, have some coffee with me.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 9 o'clock.
The train doesn't leave till 9:22.
Ah, but the early bird gets the seat, my precious. Oh, yeah. I'll just start the water running and set up the lamp for you, my dear.
You needn't go to all that bother.
How do you like your water this morning? Warm, lukewarm, hot?
Warm.
Oh, I'm setting the lamp for 10 minutes. Mind you don't take too much. No?
All right, dear. All right.
If you get in the bath just as you hear me close the front door, you'll get just the right amount of sunshine.
Oh, really, Stephen?
Now, where's my goodbye kiss?
Stephen,
Huh? Bye now.
Goodbye, Stephen.
Up with the buttercups. Come on, get up, here comes the sun.
Oh, it feels so good to get into a nice warm bath. Yes? Is that you, Stephen? Stephen, have you forgotten something again? Stephen, will you answer me? Can you hear me now, Stephen?
Oh, I forgot my wallet. I think it's in my bathrobe pocket on the inside of the door.
Oh, I'll hand it off to you.
No. Stay where you are. Just reach around and get it.
Stephen, don't open that door. The lamp, Stephen. Oh, see what you've done.
Oh, gosh, I hope I didn't break it.
Oh.
Say, these things are expensive. Hey, you didn't even have it turned on.
Well, I turned it on so you could hear me. That timer on it makes so much noise.
Well, no harm done, I guess. I've got everything now. Sorry to disturb you, darling.
Well, you better hurry. You'll miss that train.
Bye-bye, darling. Be good now.
Go on. Get out of here.
Okay, bud. I had the window.
Oh, now what? Oh. All right. I'm Oh, catch my death cold. Oh, well, you don't have to burn out the battery. Oh, my robe.
Mrs. Meade?
Oh, I don't want any today. What was that you called me?
Are you Mrs. Josephine Meade?
Well, I was. My name is Archer now. I've remarried. What was it?
This is the place, fellas. Hold everything. We're coming.
But who are those men? Who are you?
Hey, does she know yet?
Hold there, will you, Mrs. Meade? Hold it. All right, fine. Now let's try another one inside. Maybe in the kitchen, huh?
All right.
What were you doing? Fixing breakfast for your husband?
Now put the camera away. Can't you see she doesn't know yet?
She don't know yet?
Haven't you been listening to the radio, Mrs. Meade?
No, a tube's burned out. Why?
She really don't know
For
yet.
heaven's sake, will you tell me what it is?
Aren't you going to ask us in?
Well, I shouldn't,
What?
but I...
Now, your husband, madam.
My husband, he just left the house. Oh, had something happened to him?
No, we got news for you, Mrs. Meade.
I wish you'd stop calling me Mrs. Meade. My name is Archer now. I explained that to this man here.
Westcott's my name, Paul Westcott. I'm from the Evening Bulletin.
You're a newspaper man.
Yeah?
Oh, my stars and crown. I haven't been interviewed by the press since I opened in Bright Eyes in New Haven 20 years ago.
You were an actress?
Well, I gave up my career after I married Mr. Meade. I often thought I might go back to the theater, but things didn't work out that way.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting, Mrs. Archer, but about the news we were going to tell you.
Oh, don't tell her. Make a guess.
Well, please,
Can't you guess?
No, and I wish
Well, I'll give you a
to...
hint. It's the day the Derby is run off.
Darby?
Now, can't you guess why we're here? Your horses come in first.
Oh, you must have the wrong party. I don't own any horses.
Look, no. Don't you understand? The news just came over the ticker from London. You're one of the 3 Americans to hold a ticket on Ravenel in the sweepstakes.
Oh, there must be some mistake.
Don't you understand? You've won $150,000.
150... My stars and crown.
What's the matter? Don't that make you happy?
Boy, what a caption. Housewife wins sweepstakes. Must be a mistake, she said.
Oh, no, there really must be some mistake somewhere. It must be somebody else with the same name. You see, I haven't any ticket on... well, I haven't any ticket at all.
Well, sure you must have. Where'd they get your name and address from otherwise? They don't just make up those things out of thin air. What are you trying to do, kid?
Now, wait a minute. You say the winning ticket is in the name of Meade?
Yes, Mrs. Josephine Meade. You said that was your name.
Then it must have been my late husband who bought the ticket.
Huh?
You see, the house is in my name, and I stayed on here after I lost Harry and after my marriage to Mr. Archer.
Oh, well, that's all right. Meade bought the sweepstakes ticket in your name. Anyway, you're the winner.
But I don't even have the ticket.
You don't have it? You mean it's lost?
I never even knew he bought one till now. He never said a word to me about it. He died quite suddenly, you see.
Well, gee, you better look around good and see if you can find it.
Yeah, you can't collect the money without it.
You got any of your late husband's effects around the house, Mrs. Archer?
No, they've all been disposed of, but I went through everything very carefully. If there'd been anything there, even sewn into the lining of one of his suits, I'd have found
Now, think,
it.
Mrs. Archer, if your late husband never told you about it, he must have been intending to surprise you in case it won anything. So he would have put it somewhere where you wouldn't be likely to find it, wouldn't he?
Well, he would in any case. I didn't approve of his gambling.
All right, now, Mrs. Archer, think hard. Wasn't there a suit he didn't wear very much? One you might not have sent out since the ticket was bought? Put away in mothballs, maybe?
There was his dark blue.
His dark blue.
He'd only worn that once or twice. I never looked there. You see, I sent all his other clothes to the Russian War Relief, but the dark blue was in such good condition it was practically new, Mr. Weston.
Well, that's where that ticket is. I'll bet any amount it's in that dark blue suit. Let's have a look right now.
Well, I'm afraid that's not possible.
Not possible.
Oh, really, Mrs. Archer?
Because that's the suit Mr. Meade was buried in.
For Suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you as star Agnes Moorehead in Post Mortem, a radio play by Robert Tallman from the story by Cornell Woolrich. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Evenings at home can be dull as dishwashing or friendly as a fireside, depending upon the ingenuity of the lady of the house. Well, here's a simple suggestion many smart American homemakers follow to brighten stay-at-home nights. As a high spot in a quiet evening of restful reading or listening to favorite radio shows, serve Roma California Sherry. For Roma Sherry helps an evening along, adds a welcome note of warmth to friendly companionship. Yes, there's something about glowing golden amber Roma Sherry with the rich, mellow, nut-like taste that everyone enjoys. Roma Sherry, the favorite of millions as first call for dinner, is a delightful entertainment wine, too. So delicious with cheese and crackers or any simple snack. And Roma brings you a glorious sherry that is unvaryingly fine, bottled at the famous Roma Winery in California to assure you sealed in goodness always. Give your family a pleasant surprise with fine Roma Sherry tomorrow. Delicious, easy to serve, so inexpensive. Remember, more Americans enjoy Roma than any other wine.
And now, Roma
Insist
wine?
on Roma Wines. R-O-M-A.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Agnes Moorehead as Josie Archer with Joseph Kearns as Stephen in Post Mortem, a tale well calculated to keep you in
Suspense.
that's the only place it can be. It's there in the casket with him.
What makes you so certain of that?
Well, the one and only time he wore that suit before his death was one Saturday afternoon when he went out for a stroll and stopped in at a pool room. What more likely place than that for him to have bought a sweepstakes ticket?
Well, if it's buried with him, we might as well kiss it goodbye.
But $150,000,
You haven't
Stephen.
any right to disturb a grave just on a hunch like that. And anyway, Harry might have lost the ticket.
Oh, I tell you, I knew Harry. He'd no more lose a thing like that than... Well, he just wouldn't, that's all.
Well, if it's there, it'll just have to stay there.
Why, Stephen? All we have to do is get a court order
I tell you, I won't stand for it. It's sacrilege. If we've got to disturb the dead, we'll just have to let the money go.
But it wouldn't be like desecrating a grave. Harry would have wanted us to have that money. After all, you were his best
now, look,
friend.
Josie, as your husband, I forbid you to disturb that man's remains.
But, Stephen, really...
Forget that there ever was such a sweepstakes ticket. Is that understood now?
Well, all right, Stephen.
Yes.
Whatever you say.
If that snooping newspaper man comes back here, you're not to let him in this house.
Yes, Stephen.
Is that a promise?
Yes, Stephen. It's a promise.
Well, I've got to go now or I'll miss my train. We'll talk about it some more tonight when I get home.
All right, dear.
Don't forget to take your sun lamp treatment.
No, I won't. Bye now.
Goodbye, dear.
Oh. Hello? Oh, Mr. Westcott. No, I have not reconsidered. I definitely have not reconsidered. Stephen and I have talked it over, and he's deeply shocked, and so am I. I must confess at the very suggestion of disinterring poor Harry. You'll simply have to go elsewhere for your front page scoop, because I'm absolutely adamant on this point, and no amount of persuasion will make me change my mind. I shouldn't be doing this. I know it. I shouldn't be doing this.
Yes,
There's
Mrs.
something that tells me...
You wait here, Mrs. Archer.
I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't.
Now, don't take it like that, Mrs. Archer. We have a court order all properly signed and perfectly legal.
Well, I shouldn't have let you talk me into this. I'm just weak, that's all. I'm just weak. Stephen is sure to suspect something.
That $150,000 ought to go a long way toward making him forgive you.
Well, will it take long?
No, the workman is supposed to have it all ready. All that has to be done now is... well, it won't take long. Would you rather wait in the caretaker's house?
No, I'll come along with you.
All right.
Oh, there.
Huh? Oh, you Mr. Westcott?
Yep.
Well, there it is, Mr. Westcott. We hoisted it up, but we didn't open it yet.
Here's the authorization. Pry the lid off of there and make it snappy, will you?
All right. You take that in, Jack.
Okay.
All right.
What's the matter? Is it stuck or what?
Take it easy, lady, will you? It's coming.
Here you are, mister. It's all yours.
Hold this light for me, will you? Keep it off the face.
What's he doing now?
Frisking the corpse.
Oh.
And don't ask me why.
Oh, dear
Keep that
me.
light off his face, will you?
Sensitive type.
Okay. I got what I came for. Oh, please, get that light off his face.
Okay, mister, okay.
Hey, if you're all finished, we'll tuck him in again.
Wait a minute.
Huh?
Put the light back on him. On his face.
Now, on his face. Hey, what's the big idea?
Oh, Harry.
Okay, you can douse that light now. Now, listen, you guys. Leave this just as it is. And stick right here until you hear from me.
How come?
What's the matter, Mr. Westcott?
I'm not sure yet, but I've just got a hunch the DA is going to want an autopsy on this body.
My stars and crowns.
Here comes the sun.
Come in.
Hey, what's this? Up and dressed already?
Well, I bought some things in town yesterday afternoon. The delivery man usually comes around 10 o'clock, so I thought I'd put off my sun lamp and bath until then.
Oh, but you will take your treatment then, promise me?
All right, darling, but really you worry too much about me.
Hey, you must have come in awfully late last night. Did you see the show through twice?
Stephen, I didn't go to a picture last night. I did what you told me not to.
What are you talking about?
Here it is, Stephen, $150,000.
You stupid little fool!
Let go of my shoulders. You're hurting me.
Who's with you? Who saw it beside you?
Nobody, Stephen. I got the permit and took it out there, and he showed it to the man in charge of the grounds, and he got a couple of workmen.
All right, go on. Oh,
one of them got it out of the vest pocket,
yes.
And then they put the lid on again and lowered it and covered it up.
You're sure everything was put back again, just the way it was?
Why, yes, Stephen, of course.
Well, I just hate to think he wasn't put back properly.
Oh, then you aren't angry with me?
I guess I acted pretty silly about it. I thought... I don't know what I thought.
Stephen, you didn't suspect me of having anything to do with Harry dying so suddenly.
Why, of course not. What an idea. Look, you better give me that ticket for safekeeping. I'll put it in the safe down at the office till you're ready to turn it in.
That's a wonderful idea, Stephen. It makes me nervous having it around the house. $150,000, Stephen. Just think of it. Oh.
Harry's been pretty good to us, hasn't he?
Oh, don't say things like that, Stephen.
I'm sorry. Oh, Lord, it's nearly 10 o'clock. I've missed my train.
Well, if you hurry, you can catch the 10:15.
I suppose so. You won't forget your sun lamp.
I'll start it at 10:15 sharp, I promise.
Oh, I'm sorry to be such a Dutch uncle, darling, but I do worry about you.
You're wonderful to me, Stephen.
Goodbye, dear.
Goodbye, Stephen. Be careful, darling. Come in quickly. He just this minute left the house.
I suppose he took the ticket with him.
How did you know?
I know a lot of things.
For instance?
The DA's ordered that autopsy on the body of your late husband.
By stars and crown.
I think they'll find out he was murdered.
No.
Your present husband, Stephen Archer, is an insurance agent, isn't he?
Why, yes.
And he insured your late husband heavily in your favor just before his death.
Well, that doesn't prove anything.
Well, maybe not. He's pretty good to you, isn't he? Takes you to Florida every winter, stuff like that?
Oh, I should say not. How did you get such an idea?
That coat of tan you've got.
Oh, that. Oh, that's from the sun lamp. I had a slight cold a while back, and now Stephen insists that I use the sun lamp for 10 minutes every morning while I'm in the bath.
While you're in the bath?
He says it's more beneficial that way. It's a terrible nuisance, of course. The bathroom's quite small, and the lamp is always toppling over and falling on top of me.
How's that?
Well, I always wait till Stephen has left the house in the morning to take my bath, and then he almost always forgets something at the last minute and comes dashing back and blundering in the bathroom, and over it goes.
What sort of things does he forget?
Oh, well, one day, a clean handkerchief, the next, some papers or other things that he needs, or his fountain pen.
Does he keep all those things in the bathroom?
Oh, no, but he can never find where they are, so he comes barging into the bathroom to ask me, and then over goes the lamp.
You don't say. I suppose you're insured pretty heavily in his favor now.
Well, naturally, being in the business.
Yes, naturally.
Mr. Westcott, you don't think...
I don't think anything yet.
Oh, dear, whatever shall I do?
I'll tell you what, there's a way to find out if you'll cooperate with me. With your acting experience, this ought to be easy for you. Now, this is what I want.
Stephen, this is Mr. Westcott. He's with the Bulletin.
And what can we do for you, Mr. Westcott?
I stopped in the district attorney's office on my way here, Mr. Archer. They've just completed an autopsy on the body of Harry Meade.
It wasn't my idea, Stephen. Believe me, it wasn't.
You understand, of course, I'm not with the police. I'm in this for a news story or anything else that might come my way.
I see.
I might be able to help you people if you'll tell me the truth.
What was the result of the autopsy?
The report isn't made out yet, but I think they'll find he died of a blow over the head.
Sit down, Mr. Westcott. I might as well tell you everything.
Josie, you don't have to tell this man anything.
Stephen, let me do this in my own way. You see, Mr. Westcott, it was all my doing. Stephen was in no way to blame for what happened. He used to come over in the evenings to see Harry. Not me, but the more I saw him, the stronger the feeling grew on my part. Harry was heavily insured in my favor.
Josie.
He never took me seriously, always scoffed at my love for the theater. I couldn't help thinking how opportune it would be if anything took him away from me.
Josie.
Do I make myself clear, Mr. Westcott?
Go on.
Well, the night Harry died, he had gone out in back of the house to get some air, and I was doing the dishes. And it came over me all of a sudden what I had to do. I dried my hands and went upstairs and got out an old flat iron I no longer used. And I came downstairs with it hidden under my apron and went out to where Harry was. Well, I stood there talking with him for a moment. And I waited until he turned his back to me. And then I did it.
You did what?
I swung the flat iron by its handle squarely at the back of his head. He didn't die right away, but he was unconscious, and I could see it was all over. He had a weak heart, you know. And, well, afterwards, I took the iron over in the vacant lot and buried it. And the rest happened as I told you. Stephen came around, and we carried him into the house.
You mean you didn't notice the wound? Didn't it bleed?
Well, it did a little, but I washed it off.
I see.
And then I took some pinkish face enamel I had left over from the days when I was an actress, and I plastered that over the wound and even powdered it so it would be less noticeable. I made a good job of it because, after all, I do know something about those things, you know, makeup. So that's why the doctor never noticed it when he examined Harry's body.
Josie, I can't believe it. Forgive me, Mr. Westcott, but this is a terrible, terrible shock.
Well, now you know everything. I suppose you may as well drive me to police headquarters.
Why should I?
You mean you aren't going to turn me in?
That dent in his head could have been made by the men who exhumed the body. You and I are the only witnesses to that, Mrs. Archer.
Yes, but look here, can't they
In
tell?
most cases. In this case, the body happens to be in a remarkably fine state of preservation. Besides, if I do you a favor, maybe you'll cut me in for a little of that sweepstakes ticket.
Oh, anything you like at all.
Good. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk it over. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Westcott, and thanks. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Good night, Mrs. Archer.
Good night.
Well, my dear.
Stephen.
I've got to do a little thinking, Josie. This changes things considerably.
It won't make any difference between us, will it, Stephen? I did it for us so we could be together.
But you, of all people, and going out there and then looking at his
But he
body.
was so well preserved, Stephen. He just looked as if he was sleeping. Oh, that's peculiar.
What is?
Well, that he's looking so well. After all, it's been some time. It's just like in the Emerald Snuff Box.
What?
The Emerald Snuff Box. You remember I played it for 33 weeks at the Court Theater, opposite Henry Dixie? That was how they knew that it was poison, because of the way the body looked after all that time.
Poison her. Well, those bungling police doctors will never find it out. We can shut up that fool of a reporter with the sweepstakes ticket. That was a windfall anyway. We'll never miss it.
But, Stephen, we can't count on things turning out the way we want them to. I made that confession just to give us a little time. We could take a plane in the morning and be in South America in a few hours.
Oh, that'd be very foolish. No, my dear. Our best strategy is just to go on as we always have. I'll take the train into the office, you'll take your bath in a sun lamp, and we'll be the same loving couple we've always been. Josie?
I'm up here, Stephen, in the bar.
Got any idea where my iron pills are? I went off without them.
They're on the sideboard in the dining room. You know perfectly well.
What's that?
I said they're on the sideboard in the dining
Can't hear you. Mind if I open the door just a
No,
bit?
Stephen, the sun lamp's right in front of the door. Wait till I move.
Is that you say?
I said don't open the door. The lamp, Stephen. Stephen, no.
Josie? Josie? Josie! Well. That's that. Now, who the devil is that? All right, I'm coming. Up with the buttercup.
Mr. Archer?
Yes.
My name's Madison, Bureau of Detectives.
Oh, yes, Inspector, come in. This is most opportune you're coming just at this time. I was about to telephone the police.
Oh?
The most terrible thing has happened. My poor wife.
Your wife?
She was in the bath taking her sun lamp treatment. Like a blundering fool, I opened the door and the lamp fell over into the tub. I ran downstairs to cut off the house current, but before I could get back, she must
Wait a minute. You went all the way downstairs to cut off the house current? Why didn't you just pull out the plug?
Oh, I don't know. I was panicky. I got confused. There was a dreadful glare of light, sparks flying all over the place. I was half blinded.
Where's she now?
Well, she's still in there. I was trying to get up my nerve to go in when the doorbell rang. I couldn't bear to see her like that, Inspector. Electrocuted. It's just too horrible.
Well, let's go up and have a look. It's probably too late, though.
Yes, Inspector, I'm afraid it is too late, but as you say, we must do all we can.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Archer, this certainly happened at an opportune time, as you say. A warrant has just been sworn out for your wife's arrest for the murder of her first husband, Harry Meade. This reporter here from the Bulletin says he got a confession out of her.
Hello?
Oh, poor Josie. Poor Josie. Perhaps it was just as well it happened this way.
Is it, Stephen? Is it just as well?
Josie!
Well, Mrs. Archer, congratulations. You carried it off with flying colors.
What do you mean, carried it off?
By stars and crowns, Stephen, I wasn't even in the tub. I just stood behind the door and screamed when the lamp went out.
Josie, you ought to be ashamed of yourself giving me a fright like that.
It's no good you're pretending any longer, Stephen. Mr. Westcott was absolutely right. You're nothing but a common murderer.
Josie, why, surely you don't believe
That's what my confession was for, you goose, to trap you. They know all about how you killed poor Harry, where you got the poison and everything. Don't you, Inspector?
That's right, Mrs. Archer.
Why, you're worse than Sheldon Lewis was in the Iron Claw. You'd stoop to anything. My stars and crown, when I think what might have happened if Harry hadn't had on his new blue serge when he bought that sweepstakes ticket. Oh, officer, do your duty.
Josie. Dumb little Josie.
Well, I guess this about ties it. Come on, Archer. Let's go. Up on your feet.
Yes, Stephen. Up with the buttercups.
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines. R-O-M-A. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world. Before we hear again from Agnes Moorehead, the star of Post Mortem, tonight's suspense play, this is Truman Bradley for Roma Wines. Here's a trick in taste magic that will help you win family praises, even for meals made of leftovers. To bring out the full flavor of any meal, to add color and zest to the table, serve red Roma California Burgundy. A glass full of robust, full-bodied Roma Burgundy lends warmed-over pot roast a new lease on taste, gives twice-served meatloaf that tempting first meal flavor. Yes, there's greater dining pleasure in simple meals served with the rich, satisfying goodness of Roma Burgundy. For superb Roma Burgundy makes plain foods taste great, makes great foods even better. And delicious Roma Burgundy can grace your table often, for Roma costs just pennies a glass. Get Roma Burgundy tomorrow. Give zest and character to your next meal. Insist on Roma. R-O-M-A. Roma Wines. Made in California for enjoyment throughout the world.
This is Agnes Moorehead. It's always like coming home again to do suspense. You know, Vincent Price came out to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer the other day to see a private showing of The Green Years with me, and afterwards he told me all about next Thursday's suspense show on which he's going to be the star. Be sure and listen in, because it sounds wonderful.
Next Thursday, same time, Roma Wines will bring you Vincent Price as star of Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. Suspense is broadcast from coast to coast and to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.